Welcome to Late to Bloom, the podcast where we talk about philosophy, spirituality, and personal growth. In today's episode, we're going to have a little mini story time. I'm going to tell you something that happened, but it's just a little um, mini story time. I call it mini because it's not the entire episode. Because I will also talk about how you can use the word trauma in a responsible way, and discussing if our mood is always a choice. So that is what today's episode is going to be. Let's start with the story time. As you can see in the title of this podcast episode, I want to stress that you need to be with people who see your worth. Because I will tell you about that time for not a very long time. It was kind of recent. I was talking with someone who literally called me damaged because I have a baggage, because I have been through stuff, and because of what other people have done to me. I was the one who was damaged, according to this person. And I will tell you more about it now. We actually met at a dating app, but we realized when chatting with each other that we were not interested in a relationship with each other because we didn't have the same life goals or goals in any way, shape or form. We were very different from each other, but we liked some of the other one's philosophies and thoughts, and we were both neurodivergent, so we bonded a little bit over that, but we didn't have the same life goals and we didn't have the same values in life, so we decided to just be friends and chat about things that came up in day-to-day life, and I was fine with that, he was fine with that, and that was kind of how it started. Quite quickly after starting to chat about things, I realized he was a little bit of a know-it-all, and he took credit for things he didn't really knew what it was about. And what I mean by that is he talked a lot about psychology, biology, and stuff like that without even knowing what he was saying. He was talking about that nature laws did cause certain human behaviors and just lies about psychology that are now debunked, that were maybe true at some point. We did think that some human behaviors were caused just by biology and nature law, but now we have come further in that study of human behavior, and he was just plain wrong about certain things, but he sounded so confident in what he was saying, so I nearly believed him in many things, even though I am studying in this field. And I was trying to say, no, you're wrong. No, maybe he was slightly wrong, not entirely wrong, but I don't know, he just sounded so confident in some ways that even the most ridiculous things sounded profound or sounded true, even if it wasn't. And I think that's also the part when he said, like, it's human nature to see people as damaged when they have a baggage, that it's natural to see people as damaged when they have a baggage. It felt disgusting, but he was saying it in a so matter of fact, I don't know how to describe, but he didn't say it in a rude way. it seems like. He was saying it more of a factual way, and that was what makes this even more scary. And worst of all, he wanted to be a therapist before he found another career path. I'm glad he found another career path, because he would never succeed as a therapist with that mindset. But anyway, he just said one day that not to be. I don't remember how he worded it, but he said something along the lines of not to be rude or not to be sound mean, but you are actually a little bit damaged, and I can understand if people don't want to build a relationship with you, even as a friend, because of your history. And I was like, whoa, even as a friend? Do you mean that do you mean that you're just that we are friends and you are just treating me as a charity or something? Are we not friends? I was confused, because I saw him as a friend, and he said he was my friend, and at the same time he said that, and I was thinking, are you treating me as a charity? Are you not my friend, but you pretend to be just to make me happy? I don't need that. I can totally survive on my own. I can totally find other friends that respect me. And that also why I'm telling you this. You shouldn't stay with someone that tells you these things, because this is not true. This is not true. If somebody tells you, I'm with you because I see through all of this, but you have this and that, the all of these bad things, they are manipulating you, and they are not deserving of your friendship. I am worthy of good friends, and I see my own worth. It doesn't matter what other people have done to me. I am a person with dignity, and I deserve respect, and I am a worthy person. Nobody can tell me otherwise. And if someone judges you because of your past, especially when it is stuff you couldn't control, like being assaulted, like being abused, and they see you as damaged, then that speaks more for what kind of person they are, that they are a bad person. It speaks more for them than it speaks about you. So naturally, I got a little bit upset, and we ended our friendship there. And he said, well, go and be depressed then. And I just laughed to myself, a miserable laugh to be honest, but he wanted to be a therapist. Just let that sink in. He wanted to be a therapist, and he said, well, go and be depressed then, like it is some kind of choice. And he had the most ridiculous opinions, like he wanted to argue why having children is the most moral option, because then we could create a change in the world and make it better, because children could be raised better than the ones that are now. And I don't know, it's like you have forgotten everything you read about psychology when you apparently would become a therapist, because he failed to realize that some people are just evil, some people are just bad. We can't change the world by making more babies. We need to change the people who are already here. So even that is a stupid argument. He was a very interesting person to chat with, but the friendship naturally ended because I can't take when someone called me damaged because of what other people have done. I wasn't responsible for being raped. I wasn't responsible for being in an abusive relationship or being mistreated in my childhood and everything. And I'm certainly not damaged for being disabled because there's nothing wrong with that. And yeah, I just wanted to tell this little story. And now we will move on to discuss if our mood is always our choice. Of course, our actions that can happen after we feel something, that is our choice. Our actions are our choices. But our mood, how we feel in the moment, not speaking about the action, but just the mood, the feeling within itself, is that always a choice? I'm thinking about mood disorders, for example. I mean, like bipolar disorder or something like depression or anxiety. It's not a choice. I didn't like how he told me to go and be depressed, like it is some kind of insult. I mean, it's not. If that comes from a really privileged place, I think, to use mood disorders as an insult. It comes from a place of not knowing, and when you don't know a thing like that, then you are really privileged. I know people don't like when you throw things like privilege around that word. People get triggered by that word, but it is true. Some people are more privileged than others, and that really shows when you discuss things, when you debate things. It also shows when thinking about what you vote for. If you vote for a party that is more conservative, then I think you are a more privileged person because you don't have to be afraid of what happens to you. I also want to touch a little bit on trauma and how we use that word in this episode because I have seen online and heard online a more broad usage of the term than I have been taught that it is in trauma therapy, for example. In trauma informed therapy, they use the word in a more clinical sense, and what it is in a diagnosis like PTSD or CPTSD, uh, like complex post-traumatic stress disorder or general post-traumatic stress disorder. But I have stumbled upon online people who use the word trauma in another sense, where they just mean life experience that were negative, and that is somehow trauma, and they use the word trauma response when they mean a consequence of a negative thing, and they did something as a consequence. I don't like how this word evolves in online, um, because it belittles what it really is. It minimizes the struggle of what it really is. And because we broaden the term, then other people can't understand how it is to have real trauma. Because if it becomes normalized in the sense that it is commonplace, then when it is real trauma symptoms, people won't recognize that, and they won't see it for what it is, and they think the person is crazy or something. I have seen it myself. I have seen it partially by talking to this man who called me damaged. He said he had experienced trauma in his life. I have also talked to other people who have said the same thing and then goes on and call me damaged or crazy or something when I have a trauma response, a real clinical trauma response. And I have seen it online as well, that people are not as tolerant to real trauma responses despite saying that they themselves have trauma. And I think that is because the term is so broadly used that it has become nothing in the end. What I'm meaning to say is that if we broaden the term, then it becomes lighter than it really is, and it becomes just normal things, our traumas and trauma responses, so people see it as acceptable to have those reactions. And when you then have a real trauma response, a clinical trauma response that actually is considered because of real trauma, then it's too much for people. Then it's too dramatic for them. They call you dramatic, or they call you insane, or they use these derogatory terms because they don't understand that that is real trauma responses. That is what trauma is, and they are now used to the lighter responses. So the real responses has no way of being accepted as they should. I don't know if I'm making sense here, but I hope you understand that I just want to educate what trauma is, and I will talk more about clinical trauma versus life experience in a later episode or in a future episode. What's the difference between trauma and between just negative life experience? Because I think it's very um, important to um, observe the difference and to discern the difference. I think it's very important because it is a difference. But this was all for today's episode, and I think I have spoken a lot now. I have recorded this episode in like 3 days. Chunks, uh, chunks of the episode were recorded in day 1, and then I did some in day 2, and the last part in the 3rd day. So I have recorded for like 3 days in a row, and I don't think I have so much more to say. So I will say that, and I see you in my next episode. Goodbye.